Welcome all once again to another template design walkthrough. This design is called caution tape. And so we're going to jump over here in Photoshop, take a look at the layer options that are in here so you can see how easy it is to customize this. Give you some little tips on making the easiest work out of this. And yeah, let's jump into it. So starting at the top of our layer stack here, as usual for me, are some color grading layers. These are grouped. There's a few different layers in here. These are going to add a little bit of extra contrast and color to just make your images a little punchier, more of like a finishing effect on the end of your image. But as always, you can adjust the opacities or turn these on and off if you like. You will see in this one there is this color check layer clipped to the color grade layer, and what that is doing is it's desaturating some of the warm tones out of that layer just to keep them a little bit more natural. So if you're bringing your subjects in a little bit warmer to start with, this color check is going to help keep that from going too far. But again, you could change opacities on this as well, or you could even just come up here and change like your saturation levels and things as well. But yeah, those are existing right there in that folder. Below that, we have a couple of facial highlight boost layers. These are set up to basically increase the brightness on the highlights on the face if needed. Again, it's a portrait, and we want that portrait to stand out. So sometimes brighten the highlights on the face, give you that little extra attention onto your subject. We'll take a look once our subject's in about how that's used at the end. Below that, we've got a couple layers, one clip to another. So this is this foreground smoke at the bottom of the image here. Above that is the color cast attached to it. So if we turn that off, you can see we just have some like white or gray smoke here. And then to turn that smoke color on, it's just a hue saturation adjustment layer. So you can come right up here to this properties window and you can just crank this over to whatever color you'd like that to be. You could also change the amount of the saturation of that and the brightness or darkness of that as well. All right, so that's right there. Very easy to use that. Below that, now we have some texture which is getting applied to this first section of this caution tape here. So if we zoom in and take a look here, I'll show you what that's doing. So let's turn this smoke off. You can see there's just getting some light texture applied, so it almost gives this idea that it's like this kind of that plastic line used for that. I mean, you could always turn that texture off if you wanted. You could always turn the opacity of that down if you wanted it to be just a little bit more subtle. But again, that's just its own layer there, so you can kind of adjust that as you would like. Turn our smoke back on, and then we run into our first caution tape line here. So there's two different ones set up. You'll see one kind of has these slash marks on it and one is just a text one, and basically these are set up as smart objects, and I've done this to make the workflow much faster, so that by updating one smart object, in other words, if we update this top one right here, it's going to update all three of these at once that have that same style. And then below that, we're going to see the same thing on this one right here. If we update that one, it's going to update all three of those in that same style at once. So it makes it much faster when updating these. But we're going to take a look at how to update those in just a second. So I just want to continue with what layers are here. On this second caution tape, you'll see it also has its own texture layer, but it also has this little shadow layer here applied. And so that's just giving it that three-dimensional look right there where it overlaps. Below that, as typically marked in red, is the group where the subject will be placed. So you see if you can expand this, it's just going to tell you it's just a blank layer. Put your subject right here. Now there is a mask on this subject group, which is going to apply a little bit of a fade, just to the bottom of the legs so they blend in a little bit. So that is applied to that group where the subject goes. Below that, we have this shadow layer. And what's happening is in this group, this background caution tapes group, so that's what's containing all of these background ones in here. And then this shadow is just pre-applied, so when you put your subject in, it feels like they're kind of casting a shadow onto those background layers a little bit. All right, so that can be, you can change the opacity and things of that as well. But you'll see how that kind of blends in more naturally once a subject is dropped in on top of here. All right, if we expand this group, now we're going to see each of those caution tape lines in here as their own layers. Each one has a texture layer applied to it as well. And you're going to see they're just marked do not edit. That's because you don't need to edit this. Technically, you could edit any of these, but as long as you edit these top two up here, this one and this one, then these will all automatically get updated as well. All right, so let's collapse that back. Now here's just a line of text. That could be any text that you want. As always, the link to the fonts is on the product page to get the same ones if you like the ones used in the sample here. Then we have some, basically just some first name, last name text. Again, that could be whatever you wanted it to be there. Below that, this is our spot gradient. So that's what's creating that more dimensional lighting spot pattern than the background to make your subject stand out. There's some texturing in here, and this is added to help minimize any banding from that background gradient. All right, so that's what's going to keep that banding to a minimum. This is just some darkening on that bottom, again, to give the whole scene kind of a more dimensional look lighting-wise. And then your background color. So you could just double-click. You could type in a color. You could come and drag any color you want. Now, one thing I will point out, if you go with a darker color here, you can always adjust this background spot. So let's go ahead and click OK. And let's just take a look. If we come up to this spot gradient, all you would need to do is come over here, click and hold to make sure the gradient tool is selected, and now you can see our gradient controls are here. And you could either move this center point up, or you could make the whole spot bigger. You know, whatever you'd like to do to increase that size of that spot based on when your subject's in. You would control that from here. And also want to point out, if you come into this background layer, the more desaturated you go, so if you pick a color you like, but then you desaturate that spot will go more to like a white color. Versus if you keep it saturated, you're going to see that you get that cool like dimension of color happening. And that's because, so if we get up here to blue, you're going to see you're going to get that cool like cyan type of spot color. If we come up here and come darker, you're going to start to see that, how it goes into those different levels of like magenta and things. And the reason for that is because this spot gradient is set to a color dodge blend mode, and that's what allows that to get that cool kind of look like that. So let's back out of these, but I did want to mention, you know, that is all adjustable as well. And let's drop a subject in and just see how we would customize this thing. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here. I've got a subject loaded up. Let's just pull him over, drop him in. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and resize this guy. Command or Control T, and then let's bring him down. So I'm going to figure out, I think somewhere around that size looks pretty cool to me. Maybe slightly bigger. And yeah, that looks pretty good, right about there. So now I'm going to go ahead and drag him down into the subject group. So basically drag down, drop right into the group. And you're going to see that color grading now is getting applied to him. You get those punchier contrasts and things like that happening. And now that he's in that group, and I can see how he overlays everything, I want to kind of, I think I want to pull him up just a little bit. I like that position a lot better right there. And now you can also see, if we collapse this back, this is where that shadowing is happening on the background. So again, it just kind of feels like your subject's blocking the light off of some of those. And like I said, you could always pull that opacity up or down if you wanted that effect to be more or less. So I'm just going to pull that effect down just a hair like that. That looks good to me right there. All right, so now let's customize our background. So the first thing we'll talk about is this caution tape up front here. So we'll come back up to the first one. Now to edit this, what we want to do is just double click onto this thumbnail, and it's going to open up a new document Smart Object window here, and it's got all the layers for this piece of caution tape in here. All right, so you're going to see this text is even set up as Smart Object here. So edit the text in this box. So if we edit one, it's going to update all instances on this. All right. And then below that, this is that angled graphic. So if you wanted to change the color of that, say to white, you could just come pick that, or to red or any other color. That's a simple change there as well. And then the tape color itself, you can just double click here and you can make that any color that you like as well. So if you wanted that to be gray or green or whatever you would like, very easy change there. Now to edit this text, we would just double click and it's going to open up yet another Smart Object window. And you're going to take notice here. This is the text layer, and it's going to tell you keep the text within the canvas. So as long as you keep the text within the bounds of this canvas, then everything's going to line up as expected on the object. So if we double clicked here and changed the name of this, let's say we changed it to the Red Dragons. You can see it's a little bit bigger than our canvas, but if I Command or Control T and resize, and then I'm just going to give it a Shift Alt here and drag this down. All I'm going to do is bring it down to where I'm inside. I forgot my S on the end here. Let's add this. There we go. And let's resize again. I'm going to bring it in just so I'm inside the bounds of that canvas. It does make the text a little bit smaller, but as long as it's within there, if I close this and I save changes, I'm going to say yes. And let's just say we wanted to update the color of this to match more of the jersey. You can see the text is already updated in between these, and all of our spacing's the same. But if I come over here to our subject, and you could get this from the template one or from your subject, I'm just going to come up here with the eyedropper tool, and I'm going to sample a color from his jersey. Let's get a little bit of a darker tone down here. Once I've sampled it, I can click here, and I'm just going to copy this out. Control C, copying this hex value. Now if I jump back over here to this caution tape window, go into our tape color, double click, and paste that in, now that's going to give us our matching color there. So now we've updated text and we've updated color. If I close this window, it's going to ask us to save once more. I'm going to say yes. And now if we go to our window here, you can see that text has been updated and that color has been updated. All right, so it is the Wildcat, so let's just jump back in, quickly change that text back here, and double click here. All right, let's apply this, Command or Control T. I'm just going to go ahead and bring this back up to the size of our canvas. Okay, close, yes. I'm going to leave that orange and black because I like that. And close and yes. And there you can see that changes. Now, we could even make, we could do another sample here and sample this. I'm going to switch my foreground background color, and I'm just going to sample this blue. So now basically we have our two colors on our palette over here. And let's see what it looks like if we make those, the text and the slashes that color. Let's just jump back in here real quick. We're going to change this. I'm going to grab that blue, click OK. And then for the text, we're going to open that up. And you would change that text color with the text as well. Grab that blue, OK. Close and save. Close and save. And there we go. Everything gets updated that way. All right, so very easy to do. And then the next one would be the same thing. We would double click this smart object. Now it's just all text, and instead of using smart object here, this is just simple enough to type in. But what we can do is go ahead and our tape color, let's grab that background color. There we go. That's our orange. And then if you wanted to update this, all I like to do, you could space this however you want, but let's say this was just dragons. I would do dragons, and for myself, I like 7 spaces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then I would hit Command or Control A to select it all, Command or Control C to copy, hit the N key, and then just paste, 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 paste until I'm completely covering our canvas. So this one I want to extend past the edges of the canvas. So then if I apply that, close here, save yes, you're going to see it updates everything with that, all of those instances of that same one get updated all at once. All right, so it becomes, again, very easy to do that. So again, that's just to show you how quickly it is to make those changes. So we'll change this back to Wildcats 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Control Command A, Control Command C, and Control Command V to paste, 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 and paste. All right, let's apply that. I'm going to leave it black, and I'm going to switch this one. Again, I just like to go through and show you these options to show it's very easy to update these. We'll switch that back to black, go into our text, switch this back to black, then close and save, and close and save. There we go, all updated. So now our smoke, we could decide if we want to leave it just like a white smoke, which I think looks, very cool. Or we could come in here and change the color, if we wanted to make that orange to match just by sliding that over. I think I'm going to leave it white because I like the look of that. And then this bottom text, you could come up here and just these first and last names, simply double click, type in your new name and apply that. And very easy to update. Again, all basic text as well. Once again, the link to these sample fonts are on the product page if you like those. And so yeah, it's as easy as that. Again, we could always take a look at, changing the background color, matching it to like a jersey color or something like that. I like the look of that. I like the look of the orange, but I think for this one, I really like the look of just that lighter background. He really stands out against that. And so, yeah, the last thing that I would want to do to update this is come up here to these facial highlight boost layers. You can see this top one is for darker skin tones. This bottom one's for lighter skin. So I would come up to the darker skin one. I would select this black mask, make sure it's highlighted, grab a white brush, and then I could just kind of paint over the face there. And you can see all that's doing is just lifting those highlights on the face, just so we kind of have a little bit more focus into our subject like that. All right, so very easy to change and update all of that. I think the last thing that we'll do, let's just go ahead. I kind of debated back and forth between the blue and the black, but I'm going to select all this text here, and let's just bring this into that blue color. And let's quickly update our caution tape layers to the same, because I think it's going to look actually kind of cool with the blue and orange like that. Let's grab our blue here. So close and save, close and save. And then we'll grab this one down here. And same thing, just set the text, set the foreground color, click OK. And close and save, and that should update everything. There we go. And then we can decide on that smoke if we wanted it to be orange, or if we wanted it to be blue, or we could leave it just white, which I think I'll do on this one. But yeah, there we go. You can see how easy it is to update all of that, pretty quickly and easily. So I hope you get a ton of use out of this. As always, I'd love to see what you're doing and making, so please feel free to share with me directly. Share it in the JHP background groups, or tag me if you post it somewhere. And I'd love to see what you're making. So thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see you again soon on another video.